Tallahassee, Florida. A bill pushed by Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis that would prohibit public schools and private businesses from making white people feel discomfort when they teach students or train employees about discrimination in the nation's past received its first approval Tuesday. The Senate Education Committee approved the bill that takes aim at critical race theory, though it doesn't mention it explicitly, on party lines, with Republicans in favor and Democrats opposed. Democrats argued the bill isn't needed, would lead to frivolous lawsuits, and said it would amount to censorship in school. They asked, without success, for real-life examples of teachers or businesses telling students or employees that they are racist because of their race. This bill's not for black. This bill was not for any other race. This was directed to make whites not feel bad about what happened years ago, said State Senator Shevrin Jones, who is black. At no point did anyone say white people should be held responsible for what happened, but what I would ask my white counterparts is, are you an enabler of what happened, or are you going to say we must talk about history? Context: Florida's DeSantis pitches Stop Woke Act, as in wrongs to our kids and employees, to banish perceived influence of critical race theory from schools and workplaces. DeSantis held a news conference last month in which he called critical race theory crap, and said he would seek legislation that would allow parents to sue schools and employees to sue employers if they were subject to its teaching. Critical race theory is a way of thinking about America's history through the lens of racism. It was developed during the 1970s and 1980s in response to what scholars viewed as a lack of racial progress following the civil rights legislation of the 1960s. It centers on the idea that racism is systemic in the nation's institutions and that they function to maintain the dominance of white people in society. Conservatives reject it, saying it is a worldview derived from Marxism that divides society by defining people as oppressors and oppressed based on their race. They call it an attempt to rewrite American history and make white people believe they are inherently racist. The bill reads in part, an individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, does not bear responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex. An individual should not be made to feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of his or her race. The bill is called individual freedom. Republican Senator Manny Diaz, its sponsor, said it is not about ignoring the dark parts of American history, but rather ensuring that people are not blamed for sins of the past. No individual is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, solely by the virtue of his or her race or sex, Garcia said. No race is inherently superior to another race. Jones said DeSantis is playing to his conservative base by pushing the legislation, but wouldn't go so far as to say DeSantis himself is racist. From the archives, Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota targeting barbs at fellow Republicans viewed as mulling 2024 presidential bids. Also see, DeSantis viewed as target of recent Trump remark about gutless politicians not admitting to receiving booster shots. The governor will continue to go across the country with his racist rhetoric on critical race theory. It's a problem that doesn't exist, Jones said. I think the governor's policies that he continues to push are racist. The governor's office didn't respond to an emailed request for comment.